Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
And I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are extremely excited to have this special guest coming on. Jason, who do we have?
Scott, I am totally excited about having our guest today. This is no small potato individual. This is a big time individual in the entrepreneur, financial education arena. She is a 6-time New York Times bestselling author. I've read all of them. Great books. I recommend them to everyone that's listening to this. When we're talking about the Master Your Millions, how to build wealth, enjoy wealth, and pass it on, this is the person you want to listen to, and that's Loral Langemeier. Loral, thanks for being on our show.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. I like the Master Your Millions, and I love that we're a father-son team out there. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we love this. It kind of came about from Scott and wanted to say, how do we do this? We have overlapping fields in what we do, and we felt like that we could bring on good people to talk about financial education, about entrepreneurship, and really make a difference in the world. So let's get right into this. You have so much experience. You were on The Secret, the movie The Secret, and you talked to people about mindset. You talked about people how to get from point A to point B. In fact, one of the things, you have a song that was written for you, and in that song it says, "Team made millionaire."
Yep.
Why do you have that in that song?
Because I don't believe there's anything as self-made. As I was moving into my millionaire status, and then my next millionaire, I've had millionaire status in 8 industries so far. I plan on at least doing a dozen. So I have just a minute more to go do. But if you really think about it, I mean, I don't care if somebody's just saved their way to millions. You didn't do it alone. You either had a spouse, you had a partner, you had assistants, you had bookkeepers, you had CPA. Like, yeah, it's a team, even though it wasn't framed as a team. So I think I just coined that word that no one's self-made, you're team-made, because it takes a little bit of a tribe to get this done. And the amount of expertise you have to do and have to know, from taxes to corporate structure to trust to legacy. There's so many topics that when I created what I created, which was How to Be a Millionaire in 3 to 5, right, which was really my signature book, it's about getting that team together and how quickly can you sequence your team to get them doing the right things at the right time for you and your family.
Right. And let's be clear here, folks. Loral did not come from money. She was a farm girl from Nebraska, yet she had some things happen. She was an athlete. You played college basketball, got into some things, but then you kind of had a break, and then something happened.
Well,
you got pregnant, right?
Yeah. That was it for a minute.
What happened?
Well, so after college, I went to, original college. I had a finance degree. So I went to, and Scott would appreciate this, to get a job in investment banking for about 2.2 minutes. I'm like, this whole job thing's not really going to work out for me. So I went back to school because in the 80s, what you did, there wasn't like nobody teaching you to be an entrepreneur. So I went back, got a master's in exercise physiology. I went on a contract to Chevron, built fitness centers. Then jumped. Bob Proctor introduced me to Robert Kiyosaki. I became the master distributor of the cash flow game. That was that chapter, 1996. And then 99, I got pregnant. And then in 99, became a millionaire 2 times over. Gas and oil, real estate first, then gas and oil later in the year. And then 2000 rolls around, and that's when I just began all this. But Jason and Scott, I started this doing real estate tours because I was a real estate millionaire. And I'd worked for Chevron. That's how I got into the gas and oil field. So it wasn't really hard how I got here, but I was really using the cash flow game because I didn't have any of these. I mean, I didn't have all the creds and I didn't have all of that. I was just some new girl on the block and to teach, people about money. So it was a minute. I mean, the Millionaire Maker was written in 2005. So the first 4 or 5 years of my journey in this space was taking people on real estate tours. I mean, I didn't know how else to do it. So we played cash flow. They said, I want to put this in my life. And I said, let's go on a real estate tour to Oklahoma City, Norman, Oklahoma, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Bentonville, Arkansas, you name it. We hit the Midwest hard. And then Bob Proctor said, you should be the Millionaire Maker. I said, I'm just buying real estate. And then kind of the rest is history, I should say.
So he's the one that coined you first as the millionaire maker.
Mhm.
I did not know that. That's kind of cool. So,
And then
and that's, I also want to tell the listeners, you were a single mother
oh yeah, oh,
and
all
you
by
did all
myself.
this, right? I mean, and you pound on this quite often about how a man is not a plan, that women really need to step up in and come into their own. They can contribute, they can do a heck of a lot of stuff. And you're not simply sitting there preaching people to do it. You're just saying, look at what I've done. You can do it too. That's kind of
Well,
the attitude you take.
yeah, and I think I also say, if I can do it, you can do it, because I didn't start with anything more than most people that meet me now, with all the history and credibility and what I've built, and the experience I've had. And why am I still doing it? Because I love doing this. Like, I think you guys know. I mean, we met, became, you came into the big table, brought your whole family. Right after that, we became partners, and I know it's critical. It's really critical that this gets done right and with a team, and it takes a huge tribe to do it right. I don't think anyone in the financial literacy space, if we jump up to what we're doing now, because you're a huge contributor as well. If you look around the financial services world, I mean, you have to go to school to cut hair for a longer period of time than to work at Schwab, Fidelity, and all the financial institutes to actually manage someone's money. It's like, you got to be kidding. I mean, so the knowledge of money is just not on the planet. And I think it's pretty intentional that it's not out. But, I put a big stake in the ground and said, well, I'm going to teach as much as I can while I take this journey.
That's really your mission, is to just
Yeah.
simply teach people about financial literacy.
Wake up. Yes, because and it's getting rougher and rougher. I mean, we're obviously, we're recording this August 2024, will be actually aired this month. I mean, we're headed right into a very, very volatile, disruptive election, and the economy's not going to get any calmer for quite a while.
So how are you
And the
preparing
way,
for that then? A lot of people are really struggling to know how to navigate this turmoil that's going on now. If you're investing, I know you're putting money away in different projects. What is it that you're seeing in those projects that's making you feel like, yes, I'm confident that this will continue through, even in through the ups and downs?
Oh, I wouldn't know that I would say I'm confident. You said that. I would love to know that I have a little more confidence. The closer we get and the more disruptive, and not even to go into those conversations, but I can tell you the reduction of taxes is only going to come one way. Bringing, revenue back into our country. I'm a gas and oil millionaire. If you don't think that I love those words, I mean, drill, baby, drill. And I'm also on the other side. I mean, I'm in a lot of different businesses and a lot of different sectors. So do I believe in green? Absolutely. Do we have an electrical grid that is going to handle, all electric? No. I mean, Jason, you and I especially, I mean, we're on the coaching frontline green entrepreneurs who are struggling because there are costs to produce those green products. And I don't care if it's a plastic bag, I don't care if it's or even a hemp bag or a hemp jacket. I think it's one of my hemp jackets one of my clients actually made. All cool stuff, but like the technologies aren't there to do it in the volume of the amount of our population. I mean, it's not. So I think you got to, be very nimble. And I would say the number one thing, Scott, to answer to get confident is to get more knowledge. Like, lean in and learn. At the end of our podcast, I have an amazing gift for all of you for listening in today. But you have got to learn what your options are. Some of you are bogged down into assets that aren't going to perform. You're in real estate projects that aren't going to perform. I see that bleed all the time. And because of the construction cost and the way that this inflation has gone, which, one of our greatest mentors, at least he's mine, is Kelly Korshik, says, inflation, even though prices can get slashed, you got now a wage problem in some of the states where they increase the wages so high and the companies have shut down. I mean, it's an extremely volatile, interesting space right now. So I'm a huge cash fan. I'm a huge insurance fan. Real estate that I already had, and just really being positioned for a pretty bumpy ride.
So what about the gas and oil though? I mean, you've been in that for longer than you've been in real estate or some of these others. Are you still investing in gas and oil today, or are you holding off on that?
Well, so the main reason that a lot of our higher net worth clients and a lot of our people look at that asset is because of the tax benefits. Now, because we are still importing and using other people's oil, the price is what's, even though the pump are way higher, not the oil well owners. I mean, there's a really strict restriction with the current administration on what can be pulled out of the US and Canadian grounds. They rather import and give the money to other countries versus bring it back into the United States. I don't think people realize the economic problem that has, and I don't care what side of the fence you sit on, but the history of gas and oil and why it has such superior tax strategy and credits, and even the Dems and I must say both sides, anyone high net worth, right? Let's just wash which party. Right. If they get honest with themselves, they're in gas and oil too. Why? Because 25% of, say you put 100,000 into gas and oil, 25% goes to the Railroad Commission. I mean, when this country was built, they used the railroad as one of the means to generate revenue. So as people would buy and actually start producing oil and gas out of the U.S. grounds. I'll speak in U.S., but it's also true in Canada. That built the pipelines, it built the railroads, it started this nation. It was a huge part. If you look at the Rockefellers, the original 7 wealthiest families, I mean, gas and oil was a massive part of that. The development of the automobile was a huge part of all that. So all that development and industrial age development was essential. The government, though, in the U.S., for high net worth people, it gives you about an 85% depreciation schedule. So if you make, say, $200,000 and you put 100,000 into gas and oil, you're about to wash your entire tax basis. So taxes isn't just about living inside of a corporate structure where you activate deductions. It's also about how you invest, and very few people triangulate that by your corporate structure, your tax deductions, and your investing strategy. I mean, to me, I call that the greatest trifecta. You get that formula right, I mean, you're paying the least amount of taxes in the country, and that is not going away. I don't care who gets in, and don't tell me that those who aren't preaching it aren't invested in it. I know they are. And Jason, you and I, of anybody, have done a lot of homework on these wealthy families and how and what they invest in, and they may not be screaming it. They may be screaming one thing, but I guarantee you they're doing another, because it is what stabilizes this country at such a deep level. So my opinion is do both, and let people live the way they want to live. But that's, I think it's going to be an interesting journey, walking through this. And for the cash flows, I mean, what's not great, Scott, about the investment now is because of the restrictions in U.S. production. We went from nice big checks in cash flow because there was so much production to very small cash flow checks. So you say, why do you still do it? The tax benefit. So again, there's not just a one size fits all in any conversation. And those are just my rules. Those aren't, advice or anything to anyone. It's just rules of, I'd say, high net worth people.
And experience. So I heard you once say on a TV interview one place, you said, Christopher Columbus came to America, he discovered America not so we can all have jobs. It came because we wanted to be entrepreneurs. Other than education, what would you say are a couple of the big mistakes that entrepreneurs make starting out or even keep on ongoing? And I think I can almost put words in your mouth, but I'm going to let you answer that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're not conditioned or trained to be entrepreneurs, even though it's in all of our background. I mean, prior to, World War II and the industrial age in 1933, employees weren't really a thing, right? Everybody owned a part of the town that you either, were part of the merchant, you either provided food, for them to sell. I mean, it was a very collective experience. As things changed, I mean, employees became a thing, and it's what's being taught through the school system. Go to school, get a good job, blah, 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 blah. We've all done it. Let's be honest. I think all of us, you have a doctorate. I think Scott and I both have master's degrees. My son has a master's. My daughter just got accepted in a master's program. Like, I mean, it's not that I don't believe in it. I just think that's not what you're trained to be an entrepreneur. How you get trained to be an entrepreneur. So what the biggest mistake is, those who want to be an entrepreneur, Jason, and will not get a mentor. They will not strike a check to hire somebody to help them. And you're not making this stuff up in the streets alone. And if you think you're going to a school, I think, Scott, you're the one who said you learn more in our big table in 2 days than your MBA or some version of that. I mean, you don't learn this. My son got an MBA, same thing, just last year, and said, Mom, I never was taught anything you teach. Like they're teaching you to have a job, not be an entrepreneur. So number one is you got to have an entrepreneurial mentor who's actually been there, done it, walked the path before you, is also willing to give up this, which is introduce you to their Rolodex. So introduce you shortcuts, really fast introductions, shortcuts. And probably the biggest one that mentors do is avoid costly errors, because we've already made a ton of errors. We've already spent, tons of money on mistakes. So to me, lack of mentorship is a huge part, which is lack of education. The others, though, I can just name them 1, 2, and 3, is you don't have the right systems, which is marketing, sales, and you don't understand cash flow, and you're trying to do everything alone. And every entrepreneur who tries to do everything from your social media, especially now, I mean, just think at the marketing differences, like, in the last 5 years. I mean, you went from being able to send out some postcards to, it's really funny, like still we're coaching, people in the real estate space who think, I'm going to put my face and name on a grocery card. It's like, oh my gosh, that's like a 1970s, 80s strategy. Like you have to get to the forefront. You've got to, meaning digital marketing, social media, putting those leads into a database where you can actually call and do sales appointments. I mean, marketing, sales, and cash flow are so sophisticated right now and getting more and more with AI and all the other algorithms. So I think entrepreneurs doing it alone in the era of just solopreneurs. I mean, if you want to make a couple grand here and there, that's easy to do. But I'm talking, if you want to make a 6-7 figure, hustle and make a real business out of it, you're going to have systems and a team.
Love that. That's exactly what we've been preaching for the whole time since we started this. That's excellent. Scott, you have another question?
Well, are there any, I've heard you a lot, Loral, speak about the 6 to 7 figure mark. Are there any additional rules you would add if you're going 8 figures from 7 to 8?
You can up level your team with that kind of revenue when you're in those 7s. You have enough extra money capital so you can actually invest in, I'm going to say, up leveling your human capital. And a lot of people don't do that. They'll stay with the same team. And one of the and for women, I find it's harder because they become friends, right? I've had my moments of getting too close to people who work with me, right? Because I don't have actually any employees at this point in my chapters of careers. My daughter and I are the only employees left. Everyone is a company to company relationship. So I think the stages of your development, like 0 to 100,000, I'll kind of go through the 3 big stages I see, right? To preface your question, Scott, like 0 to 100,000 is the hardest money to make because, again, we're taught to be employees, not entrepreneurs. So learning, how do you market yourself? How do you speak about yourself? And again, women say, well, I don't like bragging about myself. It's called marketing. And you have to. And I think that, now you've got to call, because there's so much crap on the internet. I call it the bathroom wall. I mean, most marketing statistics would show that you have to call, text, leave voicemails, email. You have to do a whole combination of contact points 10 to 14 times to get one person on a phone call, because it's just bombardment with all this AI, the bots, people calling you spam. I mean, just to get to a human that's real, that could be your client, it takes a lot of effort marketing wise. And you got to you have to sort through all the social media crap, right? That's just out there. I'll call it that. I mean, I love the platforms. I appreciate all my followers, and it's really competitive out there. So you've got to figure out marketing. You've got to figure out sales. You got to figure out cash flow. If you're not making 100 grand, it's not enough, because you're going to have, your family will live on most of that. You might pay a little bit of tax. Unless you do it our way, you'll pay the least amount of tax. So there's just not enough money to hire the team. So once you get to 100, it's like, whew, that's like the heaviest lift. Then 100 to 1 million is pretty quick. So to your point, Scott, that's just ramp up your marketing. This is when you start putting ads, you start getting better content, you start building studios, you ramp that marketing piece up, you ramp up your sales piece, which is easy. They're mostly commissionable people, and really get a mentor on cash flow. And that's what I am masterful at. I love helping people manage their cash flow, just through monthly bills. And how do you do it? Especially people who are Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman trained, which is not bad. They promise to get you out of debt and, live happily ever after. They don't have the same promise I do. Mine's a millionaire promise. Mine isn't a get you out of debt. Mine's manage your debt. Mine's actually get you into good debt and arbitrage it. So I have a very different strategy to get you from 6 figures to 7. but that's just up-leveling marketing, right? But when you go to 7 to 8, what I find is the people who got you there, they're usually not, because at that point you're moving into departments. You have a marketing department, you have a sales department, you have a fulfillment department, operations, technology, accounting. So now you're moving into departments. So those kind of people tend to be a different kind of person than the scrappy little entrepreneurs. Like I remember the first 3, 4 women and men who helped me when we were just running to our first 100 and then up to our first 1.7 million and 3. That team, when we got into those 3s and then headed into the 10s of millions, they weren't team players. They weren't departments. They were like the jack of all trades, which are great scrappy entrepreneurs to get started. But I have never seen a sustainable organization. I should say never. Rarely have you kept those who started with you want to be on the development of what then becomes a big organization. Because at one point, Scott and Jason, I don't know if you guys know this. I mean, I had 82 salespeople. I had almost 100 coaches during the run of the Millionaire Maker. Oh my, and The Secret, all that hitting at one time, CNBC, TV, all Dr. Phil. It was so much volume. It was insane. And so, I mean, you have to run departments. You've got to have managers, and a lot of those scrappy entrepreneurs who helped you get there, your first, 6, 7 figures, they usually aren't the ones that are going to take you home. And you saw that probably in the best. I just thought of this, the movie that Steve Jobs, where they tried to, they did replace him, but he is such a driven entrepreneur in marketing, and he drove marketing and sales for Apple. They had to bring him back, right? So it's just interesting to watch. So I would say team and systems, to answer that question, takes you from 7 to 8. And it is up leveling all of it. Advanced systems, especially now cybersecurity. You got AI security. You got a lot of up leveling to do to live and thrive then between that 7, 8 mark. Until I've done it. It's you better be ready, and you better have marathon shoes on, because you're going to think you're going out for 1 marathon, and by the time you're done, you've run 5. Because it's different than you think. Everything's it's just a breeze. Yeah.
Does it go the other way? You said you're going to up level your team. Mm-hmm. What about your mentors? Will you be going through that stage and up leveling your mentors? Because I'm assuming you have mentors. I don't know who they are. You've mentioned a few, right? But I'm assuming that from what you had, that you upload. Is that true? That's how that works?
Yeah, in some cases, I don't know if I'd call it, you'll pass them. Like I passed many of mine financially, my mentors. I mean, big names that a lot of people probably watching the podcast know, and I know our revenues outperform them in triple, quadruple. The difference also is I wasn't a big lifestyle person, right? I would go buy real estate, gas and oil. I'd buy businesses. I'd buy assets, not a lifestyle. Where a lot of my counterparts, show off a big lifestyle, and that's never been who I am. So I invested deeply. So when hard times like 2008, 9, 10 came along, when COVID came along, like you're still sustainable. The people who, would do these big, I mean, that's a scary domain. And there's the people who live through that. So yeah, I passed some of my mentors. A lot of times at that point, Jason, I became their partner in something. We partnered on an initiative, or we went and bought an investment, or we did something together. And sometimes you just topically, for me, it was topical. It was more topical. I topically just kind of moved on to more advanced financial, because I wanted to stay in that finance, money, knowledge base. So I just kind of moved on, but I've never had any negative like fallout, other than the one time I was super sarcastic and Bob Proctor fired me. And I said, well, then give me my money back. And he said, no, I'm working. You're not doing what I've told you to do. So until you're always welcome to come back, but you got to behave, meaning do what I ask you to do. So I use that on my students. You know that. You've known a few people that I've fired, and they're like, you can't fire us. It's like, well, I'm not going to work with you until you shift your willingness to learn and be, to really want to engage in this. Because most people don't want to learn about money. They just want it done for them, which is the sad part, which is, if I say the problem myself, is waking people up to, this is your family life. I mean, nothing's more important from the minute you wake up to the, minute you go to bed, or you say from the minute you get on the planet to the end. You have to have money to live here. I don't care. So the fact that it's so poorly and unethically taught is shocking to me. It's still, I mean, I'm surprised that I'm still surprised after 27 years, but I am. This is disappointing to watch the lies that are just not true about money.
It's as you say often, the system isn't broken. It was designed that way.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Um,
Well,
what would you say then, kind of in parting? This has been an awesome interview, and one of the things you said a minute ago was, you need to know about sales, you need to know about marketing, you need to know about accounting, and basically starting to put together your team.
Mhm.
I, for one, know that that's right in your ballpark. That's
Yeah.
right where you are. You have events that people pay $400 or $500 to come to an event and listening to you directly and say, okay, this is what you got to do. Then you do this, then you do that. Because really,
Yeah.
the Rich Dad Poor Dad is the what. The book you've held up a couple of times is the how, folks. That's the how to do it. You want to become a millionaire, go to the Millionaire Maker. That's Loral Langemeier. That's who's talking on this podcast right now. And she has events where people pay her $400 or $500 to go to start listening. Okay, well, how do I do marketing? What's the first step? How do I do sales? There is a science to it, like other things.
Absolutely. And I have some gifts for people to come to one of those events. It's askloral.com/MYM for Master Your Millions, which is here on the podcast. So you'd ask Loral, it's ASKLORAL. It's in the show description below. And by going to that link, you're going to get all five. I can't get my sixth one. My sixth kid book is still under McGraw-Hill's command. You'll get my top five best-selling books ebook sent out to you, one-on-one invitation to meet with our team, and 2 tickets to that Millionaire Intensive that you're going to see Jason back on to. He attends the majority of them with me. So it's exciting. So you'll have
Awesome.
yeah. So I appreciate being on today, guys.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so much.
Loral. Guys, just like Loral said, we will put all of her links in the show notes down below. So check below. If you'd like to connect with Jason or I, you can find our contacts in the show notes down below, or hit us up on one of our social media platforms. Last, remember that mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. We will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.